before we
Hey
pray for
everybody.
our kids, let's send
I
an
wanted to
invite
have a short video put
kids in
together
praise time.
to talk
I want
about
to
tracking and framing the subject,
make a comment about the video
particularly
that you just saw.
when somebody is preaching. So
One of the things that we would like to
this
do as a
video
church and that we
was
haven't done
done
over
on
the years
February,
has been
the
to
last Sunday of February. I think it
establish
was
a
the
clear
26th.
and
So
focused way
I zoomed in
of
all the way
thinking
on
through
the
the
200
issues of how do
millimeter
you witness?
zoom
How do you
point.
share the gospel
And
of grace? If
I've
your
seen a lot of
life
people
has been
use a
impacted
lot wider
by
of a
the
zoom,
gospel of grace, if
and
you have
I
come to
wanted
put your
to
faith in
basically
the Lord Jesus
demonstrate how
Christ, if
you
you have
do
understood that Jesus
track
has
somebody
paid the
whenever you're
penalty
fairly
for
tight.
you and rescued you, and
Um,
by his grace
so this would be
forgiven your sin
like a
and brought
waist up
you
shot. You
into
can
an
see
eternal
Pastor Page's
relationship with
belt there at
God
the
your
very
Maker.
bottom, and then
Would
he's
you
got
want
a
to
little
share
bit
that
of
that
headroom at the
reality can be
top.
for someone else as well? That they
So
too can be
that's part
rescued?
of
And
the
so,
framing of the
but
shot.
often for many of us, we
So
find
you can, again,
that same
that top
feeling
piece, we're
like
not cutting off his
you don't
head.
know where to start.
And
And
as he
so we
moves
want you to
forward,
know that as a
you'll
church and
see
as a
that I begin
leadership, we're
to pull the
committed
camera down just
to
there.
addressing that in
Um,
our church. We want to
so you
come
want to keep
alongside you
just
and
enough
help you
headroom
know where
in
to
the shot
start.
that you're not
And
cutting off
so
his
on
head,
March
cutting
24th and
off his head,
25th, we're going to be having
and
a 2-day, day and a half
then keeping that
training called
keeping
My
him
Circle
obviously
Training.
in the
And
middle of the
so I
shot.
hope that you will give serious thought
You'll also see kind of
to
as he
being there for
moves
that. You might
that
say to yourself, in
sometimes
fact, I had a
I let him
conversation with someone
track
this morning who said,
to one
do you think
side
if
of
I
the
were to
frame or
come
the
for
other.
this, I
I
struggle
am
with being
generally
able
speaking trying to keep
to
him
remember
within
Bible
the middle
verses and that
third.
sort of thing and to
Um,
learn Bible and so forth? Do you think if I were to come, this
and
would be
so
for
as
me?
he's moving
And
here
my
to the
answer is,
left,
doesn't matter where you are,
um,
this is for
so he
you.
didn't do it this time, but if
If you
he's
just feel like I
moving to the
feel
left and it
at the
looks like
very
he's
starting
addressing
point,
the
this is
left
for
side
me.
of the
If you feel like,
crowd,
I've learned some
I
things and
do
I've been
want
able to share my
to put
faith
him
in
in the
some
frame on
different
the right side.
settings, this is for you.
Um,
And so we want to challenge you as a
Obviously,
church
as you're
congregation
moving
that you'll
subject, though,
give
you're
serious
not
consideration
standing
to
still
being
very
there.
quickly.
Jim Murphy,
Um,
who will be the presenter
the other thing I
after
did
the
want to
service. If
talk
you want to
about is
get more
what
information, you can
Paige
stop
is
by
doing
the
there,
table that's
coming
in the
back to the
foyer.
podium,
One
and
of our
kind of what I was
elders will be there. You can
what
see
I
the
would
schedule. You
call
can flip
anchoring.
through
I'm just
some of the
gonna
materials
give
if
it
you
that
want
name. I
to.
don't know if
But
anybody
we want to
calls it
make
that,
that
but
available. And
there's
we'll
his
urge and
home point,
challenge us as a
right?
church that God wants
So
his
once
gospel,
he
the
comes to
gospel of
his home
grace,
point, you're
known.
always
And
going
he wants
to
to do that
be looking
through his
for,
people.
is he
And
going
so I
to
want to
anchor
challenge
himself
you,
there for a
urge
little
you
bit?
to give
And his
serious
eyes are
consideration to
going to
making,
give you that
setting
clue of
aside
what,
those 2 days
when he
to
comes
be there
to
for that
home to the
training.
podium,
It is
is he
free.
going to anchor
We're
there?
asking
His
that you
eyes tell you
consider a
that.
$10 donation that will
The
cover
rest of
both
the time when
the
he's
meals, the
moving,
food that will be served, as well as the
I'm
materials that will be
watching
provided.
the shoulders,
And
generally speaking.
so we hope that you will
Um,
consider that. Let me
they
pray for our
will give a
students
lot of the clues
this
as
morning
to
and our young
where
kids,
he's
and
getting
ask
ready to
God's
go.
blessing on them as they
Part of
head
this
off to
is
their kids in
having
praise time.
these
Lord,
general
we bless
thoughts
our
and
children in the
ideas
name
and
of the
kind
Lord
of that
Jesus
knowledge
Christ.
of
And we ask, Lord, that you
just
would
tracking
give
somebody
them
often and getting
your
that idea.
spirit. We
And
pray
then
that
part of
as
it's
the
just
word of God
knowing
is
the
given
person
to
that you're
them, that
tracking.
the Spirit of God would teach them
So here,
concerning
obviously,
the
Pastor Paige is
gospel of
praying.
grace and the love of grace.
So
Give
it's
our
one of those
teachers
times where
attention
you can be fairly
and
certain somebody's
focus
going to
and
stand still.
ability
And
to
I
teach
very specifically
and to
remember
impart the word
being
of the
really
Lord to them,
focused
we pray.
during that
And we
first
ask this
beginning
in
time
Jesus'
whenever he's
name.
just kind
Amen.
of talking, and up to whenever he started
Now I
praying.
invite you to
I remember my
take your
mind just kind of
Bibles
turned
and
off there
open
for a minute,
to
being able
1
to
Peter, where
relax.
we've been
Otherwise,
studying
you're
each
really
week.
on the whole
And
time.
today we continue our
Again, what
study.
Pastor
We
Page
pick
is
up
doing
our
right now,
study in
he's
the
looking
beginning of
down.
chapter 4.
So he's getting anchored in right there. He's not moving. He's looking down at his notes. You know he's going to be staying there for a
Last
little
week,
bit.
the question that I posed, or really the
So
text
some other
posed
keys
for us,
with
was to
tracking
answer the
somebody this
question,
tight
why suffer for
or this zoomed
righteousness?
in,
And
it's
Peter gave
really
us
important that you,
some
as the
clear
camera
answers
operator, are
as to
comfortable.
what the reason would be
So
for
you've set
why we
your
ought to
chair
suffer
up
for
and
righteousness
you've
if we
set
are
your
God's
armrest
children.
up. in a way
Today,
that you can
the question that Peter is
grab
asking
the
through the
handle
text is
of
how
the
to
tripod
face suffering.
and you can
What do
move
you
it
need to
without
do
bumping it
to
and,
get
and
prepared?
jerking
Last
the
week I
camera,
said to you the main
and then you can
idea
let
was
go
that suffering, if
again.
you're a Christian,
You can
if
let
you're
go of the
seeking and
camera
attempting to
handle
follow God,
and not cause any movement and
suffering
let
is
your hand
inevitable.
rest. It
And
sounds kind of silly,
therefore,
but again, if you're
uh,
holding that
you
camera
need to know
for the entire time,
that you are
you're going to end
safe
up
in the hand of the
probably having
Lord.
some sort of a shake.
Today, the
So you need to
main
be able to
truth
let
that I hope
yourself
for us to
rest,
be
let
able to
yourself breathe,
meditate on
because
is,
obviously
since
he's going to be
suffering is
preaching for
inevitable,
45-ish
suffering
minutes.
has a
So it's a long time
sanctifying effect on the
for your
Christian.
brain and your hands
So
and
decide
everything
now.
to be
You
that
hear that?
focused and that
Suffering
on a
has a
subject.
sanctifying effect on the Christian. So
So
decide
again, just
now.
kind of as we're
Now that
watching
word
Pastor Page move around a
sanctifying,
little
if you're
bit,
not familiar with it, if that's
I'm
a
trying to
kind of a
watch his
newer word for
shoulders
you, it's
and
simple, has several
make very
different
small
meanings.
movements.
One of the
Once he
ones
comes back
that's
to home place, he's
important to
not
grasp
perfectly
is
centered
that
in this
sanctifying means to
shot right
purify,
here, but
to
that's
make
okay.
pure. So we
He
could put it
kind
this
of
way:
moves side to side a
suffering
little bit
has
and
a
stays in
purifying
frame
effect.
plenty.
So decide
And
now.
the less
Now, Peter has a
uh,
structure in this
moving that you
passage,
need
and
to
as
do,
you'll
obviously, the
notice,
better.
last week he had some
That and
really hard and
combined with
challenging things to
you
think
really only
through, and
want to
hopefully
move
when you
when
picked up the
he's
paper
moving.
that was
That's when
provided, you
camera
were able
movement
to
looks the
think
most
about some of
natural.
those things. But
If
this
he takes
passage
a
has
step
some
and the camera
additional
takes a
challenging
step
things.
uh,
Maybe not
at the
quite
exact
as
same time
many
in
or as deep,
conjunction,
but
it
still,
looks very
nevertheless, some
natural for the
statements
camera to
that
be
Peter
moving.
makes that we have to think about, and
Also, if the
hopefully
camera is
be able to
moving at the
address
same
those
speed as
this
him,
morning. But I want you
keeping
to
him in
know
the same
from the beginning
frame
that there's a structure to
spot
Peter's
as he
this
moves,
passage, these
it
6
looks like a
verses,
very
and therefore
natural
my
movement.
message
It's
this
whenever
morning
we
follows that
move to
structure. And here's the
catch back
structure.
up with
Peter
him
gives to us
whenever we're
a
behind.
one
That
main
that's
point:
whenever having a
decide
tight
now.
shot
That's the
and
main idea.
um,
And
following
then
somebody looks
3
very
supporting
unnatural
points as
and
to how
bad.
you'll
So
go about
uh,
deciding
you can
now
kind
in
of
terms
see
of as it
as we
relates
bounce around a little bit, trying to keep that movement.
suffering. And here are the ideas. And I didn't
And again,
realize
remembering
this till last night as I was going over this again. It hit
when he
me
comes back
that Peter
to this
thinks
home
of
spot, does he
in
look
terms of
down? He's
past,
looking down. You know he's going to
future,
stay
and
there for a little
present.
bit.
And we'll get to those in a
And
second. But here's the
again, those
structure: decide
hands,
now.
um,
And by doing 3
those
things:
hands
be
don't
done
mean a
with the
lot of
past,
things other
live
than like
with
he's
discernment
expressing himself with
as
his
you think
hands.
about
But
the
as far
future,
as having a
and then
clue to is
depend
he
on
going
the
to move out of
gospel,
frame, you
the
don't want
good
to
news
follow
of
the
the
hands.
gospel in the present.
You want to follow his
All right, let's
shoulders
take
or
each one
his
of those
hips.
and look at them.
If you're
Verse
playing
1,
sports,
which was read
your
by
coach
Janae,
probably always
says,
told you
"Since
don't
therefore
watch their
Christ
feet or
suffered
don't watch their
in the
hands.
flesh, arm
You want to
yourselves with the
follow
same
the
way
core
of
of the body,
thinking."
whether it's the
Let's just
shoulders or
stop
the
right
hips,
there.
depending on
We
which
need to
sport you're
think about what
playing.
Peter is saying. What is this verse saying? Now, I said to you last week
So
that
again, you just saw there,
Peter has
Pastor
been
Page, he was
stressing
looking
to us
down,
that
he was
Jesus
in
is
that spot,
both
and then
our
he's
Savior.
not going to start
We
moving
trust in
until
him. He
he's looking up.
suffered for
So
us.
again,
He
it's
suffered
just
in
some
our
cues
place.
that you
He
know,
did
oh,
stuff
he's
for
looking
us
up,
that we can't
he could
do
start to
for
move.
ourselves. He's both
And
our
then as he
Savior,
takes those
and
steps,
at the same
that's whenever
time,
you
he
start
is our
tracking. And again,
example or our
as we're moving the
pattern.
camera, I'm
There's
really
some
trying to
things
keep
that
it the
Jesus
exact same
does
speed
for
as his
us
body
that we
movement.
cannot do for
And that
ourselves,
way
and
it
there's
looks the
some
most
things that
natural
Jesus calls
and
us to do
noticeable.
by
And he's kind of
following his
bouncing around,
pattern
and
or
so
following
if
his
I bounce
example. And
around
both of
right along
those
with his
things are
movements,
present
it
in
looks
these
fairly
passages that we've
clean,
been
fairly
working our
good.
way through, and
Um,
here this
the other
morning
thing
present
to
as
think
well.
about with tracking somebody that's
Since
moving this
Christ
much
suffered in the
is
flesh,
your
arm
tripod
yourselves with the same way
tension.
of thinking.
So there's 2 tension rings that we
What
have
does
on
it
our
mean,
tripod for
since
the
Christ suffered
pan,
in the
which is the
flesh?
left to right
Peter
movement,
wants
and
us
then the
to
tilt, which is
reflect
the up and
on
down movement.
Jesus'
So a lot of
attitude
people will just
towards
put that on as
suffering.
tight as it can be and let
Jesus,
it be there.
your
So
master,
again, if you're going
your
to be able to
creator,
track somebody like this,
your
it
redeemer,
probably
God's
can't be
anointed,
that tight.
suffered in the flesh. And Peter
But
wants
it
us,
does kind of
because he
depend
is
on your
not only our
preference.
Savior, but also
So
our example
I
or
would
our pattern.
suggest you
He
try
wants us to
loosening it
reflect
up a little
on,
bit
how
on
did
that
Jesus
tension, those
think
tension rings,
about
so
suffering?
that you have a little easier
was his
time moving the
viewpoint
camera
on it,
around.
if you and I are called to follow him? You see,
Um,
Jesus thought about
I did
suffering in a
briefly mention
very
the thirds
particular way.
at one point, I
Here's
think,
what he
whenever I was
thought.
talking about this, but I do want to
For
just say again,
Jesus, it is better to
you
do right,
whenever we're looking at
meaning
the camera
obey God,
viewfinder,
trust God, walk
we
in
see
God's
there's
ways, and
thirds
suffer for
lines
that
on
in
the
this
preview.
life
So if
temporarily,
you have a really tight
than it
shot,
is to
you want to
try to
use
preserve
the
your
third line
life
that's running
by
vertical,
avoiding
that top one,
suffering
to kind of hit their eyes. But on
and not
wider shots
obey
like
God
this, you don't want to
and
worry
not
about
trust
that
God and
third
not
line
walk
so
in
much as
God's
you want to
ways
worry
and then
about the
suffer
headroom,
for
because
that
you're having
eternally.
so much of
Get
the
it?
subject's
For Jesus,
body in the
his
shot.
way of
So
thinking is it's
again,
better
to
trust God in
this
this
waist
life
shot,
and
where it's from the
suffer
waist up,
temporarily
we just want to
and
make
then
sure he's got
enjoy
that correct headroom on the
heaven and
vertical
bliss
thirds.
and enjoyment
And then with
for
the two
eternity
horizontal thirds,
than it
I'm
is to
really trying to
disobey
keep him
God and
within
try to
that
have a
middle third.
comfortable life in this
If he
life
gets
and then
to one
suffer
of the
for it
edge thirds,
forever.
he's pretty much going out of
Do you
frame,
see his
because
thinking?
as you can see, when his body is in the middle third, his hands can
Therefore,
reach
Peter says,
outside
arm
a lot of times.
yourselves with the
So,
same way of
again,
thinking.
some things to
Now,
consider.
that word
And
arm
I hope this
yourself
video was helpful,
is a military
and
term.
we'll go
It
from
means
there.
that you need to know that you